as a result of the American Bible Society's 5th chapter of its State of the Bible USA 2024 report, that cliques are an issue in church. We're going to get to that more in detail here in just a minute and what problems are they're causing. But first of all, of course, cliques, if you're not familiar, we all should be because of, I don't know, school. It's a small group of people who spend their time together and do not welcome other people into that group. Quintessential example of that is the movie Mean Girls from the 90s.
That was not the 90s.
When was that?
Early 2000s.
Well, yeah, obviously.
I didn't see it, but I'm somewhat familiar with the concept.
What were the cliques in your high school, Ron? Do you remember?
Kind of stereotyping.
Sure, yeah.
The jocks, the freaks, and the nerds.
What were the freaks doing in the 80s, 70s? Wearing weird clothes or something, or?
No, it was more like you smoked, you drank on the weekends.
Oh, they were bad kids.
Yeah.
So bad. You were a jock, I bet.
Yeah.
Of
but
course you were.
I hung out with a lot of smart kids too, so I had inroads with the nerds.
So you were a floater.
I guess I was.
But I've seen the picture of you in the stands in your football jersey, and you were total stud. Total stud muffin. Yeah, still are, but, you know. Daria, obviously over time things change. What were the cliques in your school? Do you remember?
I honestly don't know that I paid close enough attention to that. I mean, so I was in choir and theater, and so a lot of us kind of hung out, but as far as what everybody else was doing, I honestly couldn't tell you.
You were a choir kid?
I was. That got me a lot of friends.
Well, no, I mean, we had this stark divide among the nerds, of course. I was a band kid, which is clearly the cooler of the two. Then there was weird choir kids. Didn't have any instruments. They just sang. Lame-o.
Well, maybe we were born with our instruments.
There you go.
That's a weird thing to say. It's losers say that. And then, of course, there were the athletes, and then there's the odd popular groups, right, of varying levels. I had a huge high school, so there were tons of them. But there was always the group of popular girls who refused to date anyone in the school because they were just too cool for that. They were much too important and fancy to date anyone in the school.
So they missed out on all the dances and events like that?
Well, they would relent and then, go with a popular boy, maybe.
Yeah.
Or bring some mysterious man from another school or college or whatever.
Mysterious man.
And then there were like the nerds and I was obviously in the cool group.
Obviously. I mean, it's centered around you.
Or not.
I pushed it too far, Ron.
I was probably more like you, Ron, in that I kind of floated around. But I don't, my wife is probably screaming at the radio if she's listening because I was in the group that I wore khaki pants to high school.
Okay.
Daria, go ahead.
Our uniform was khakis, so I can't say anything.
We didn't have a uniform.
We did.
You chose to.
Yeah.
Everybody else was wearing jeans, probably.
Yeah, some of them. It was just an era. I don't know. But I was friends with the band kids and some nerdy kids, but I was not popular in any sense at all. But anyway, cliques are just a natural part of life. You see them develop everywhere. I mean, even sometimes in an office, if you work in a big enough place, we don't work in a big enough place because if we had cliques, we'd all be alone.
Right.
There aren't enough of us to form cliques and exclude others, but in some offices it happens, right? It's frustrating. But it does happen in church, right?
Yeah, I think it does.
I kind of bristle at the exclude others part of the definition. I'm not sure every clique excludes others. They just naturally form together and people feel awkward about trying to become part of it.
Yes. And that's where I think the exclusion of others is sometimes intentional, sometimes not. Like I would guess in a church clique, if you ask someone, do you invite other people to join or are other people allowed to join? Oh, of course they are.
Yeah.
And yet either people are they don't feel like they can get in edgewise to ask to be a part of it. Or really, at the end of the day, they're not allowed in your group. Well, the group's full. They're busy. You see what I mean? Like people would, I think with good intentions, don't want to create this.
Yeah. And if the group is older, high school and up, where you can drive yourself around or whatever, you might be less likely to invite, the new person who wanted to join your clique. Well, everybody forgets to call him and say, hey, we're going up to McDonald's to eat French fries and just hang out.
Right. Well, and of course, Christians should not form cliques, and yet we do. 1 Corinthians 1, beginning at verse 10, says, I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree with one another in what you say, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly united in mind and thought. So don't form little divisions, and yet we do. And I would also venture to guess, tell me if I'm crazy, that you could go to a church that clearly has cliques, but if you ask them, they tell you they didn't.
Right.
Why is that?
I think cliques are just kind of a natural part of the human experience. We tend to gravitate towards people that are like us, and we don't like new things. So we might, whether it's intentional or not, exclude new faces. And then cliques obviously have a pretty negative connotation. I don't think we like to think of what we're doing as being cliquish, but it happens.
It's Mornings with Brian. We're coming to you live from the Bob Devine Studios. Lauren's out. She's back on Thursday. The rest of us are together chatting about cliques in society, but specifically now we're turning our attention to church. A clique, by the way, a small group of people who spend their time together and are not welcoming to people to come into that group. Now, Ron pointed out sometimes that's intentional, like in high school, it's this seat's taken, and it's actually not.
Right.
But I think sometimes it's unintentional. Like there's an air a clique creates of we're exclusive and we don't have space for you. As in, here's how it would work. Let's just say there's a clique in a church of a group of women and Daria walks up to it and they let her into the circle, so to speak, but never into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And everything circles around topics that Daria can't weigh in on because she's not part of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty soon Daria goes, well, clearly I'm not welcome in this group.
Mm-hmm.
But the women would say, oh, sure you are. Come on back over here.
Yeah, we'll let you sit here.
But we're not going to invite you in.
Mm-hmm.
So all that to say, how does this have to do with the survey? Well, the American Bible Society released the 5th chapter of their State of the Bible USA 2024 study. And one of the things they asked a group of Americans, not just Christians, which negative experiences in faith communities decrease your level of participation in church, temple, or faith community? So what are the experiences that make you not go as often to church?
Okay.
Or not want to go to church? There's a whole bunch. There's like 9 different options, like feeling unsafe, failure to receive sufficient care when you need it, spiritual abuse, conflict in the faith community, financial improprieties, disagreements with biblical teachings, judgment or condemnation based on your belief and lifestyle. But that wasn't number one. I think if you surveyed Americans in general, they'd say, oh yeah, I bet people are mad that Christians judge you. Nope. The number one experience, negative experience that decreases the level of participation in a church for any American is an appearance of exclusion or cliques within a faith community. The number one negative experience that pushes people away from us. Isn't that wild? And more so than judgment.
Yeah, I would have thought judgment would be up there.
It is up there, but it's not number one.
I have to wonder too. I'm not denying that cliques happen and that people have experienced this and decide I'm going to distance myself from the church community. I'm wondering if there isn't an element too of people have not inserted themselves. They are not making themselves an active part of the church community in which they can get to know people. And they're just kind of expecting the community to flock to them when they're also not putting in any effort. And then they get frustrated.
Oh, I'm sure that's part of it. The challenge becomes, of course, you want relational intimacy in church among people, real close together, which makes it inherently harder for a new person to come in because everybody's close already.
Right.
Interestingly enough, what are the positive experiences they also asked that draw you to a faith community? List of 9 options. Number 1, feeling of community or belonging.
Mm-hmm.
The number one reason people want to come to us is because they want to feel like they fit somewhere and belong. And the number one thing that pushes them away, clicks.
That just emphasizes the need that when you see somebody new in church that you don't recognize, you need to go say hi to them. Even people like me, introverts, if I notice it, if I see something, I should say something. Go and
It's like you're in the
say
airport.
hi. Yeah. And if you see somebody sitting by themselves, maybe go over and say, hey, if you're not waiting for somebody, would you like to come sit by my wife and I?
Yeah, and Lana texted in to say clicks are a big problem. 100% agrees. This is a big problem. How do we stop this in church? Because these are divisions. I think they're, in a sense, positive divisions, as in most people in church are not saying you're not welcome here.
Right.
Most people in church would tell you they want to welcome you and that you can join their little group.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we unintentionally exclude people. So how do we fix this problem?
I think you just need to be more aware of new people in your midst and make an active effort to get to know them. We've been in scenarios before, and I'm kind of singling out younger people here. It seems like they in particular are very standoffish. So I'm wondering if a lot of these people that are reporting these clicks are younger and are talking about younger people as well. But you start mingling with some older people, they're much more open and welcoming, whereas people in my demographic roughly little bit more shy, and they'll keep to themselves. So it really does feel like you're running against a wall trying to get to know people.
So at a rudimentary level, let's go back to the scenario I painted, right? There's a group of women gathered up in the foyer of church, and Daria is new and she wants to go be a part of it, and they welcome her in the circle. And they're already chit-chatting about their lives and such. How do they welcome you in a way where they're not totally shifting all the attention to you? Because that would repel my wife. Where if all of a sudden, 10 women turn and start quizzing her.
It would depend on the person. You're not going to be able to please everybody, especially if this is like a brand new person you don't know. But for me, I appreciate just like a little bit like, how long have you been coming here? What do you do for a living? How long have you been married? Like just basic questions like that. And then maybe you can shift the conversation to something that's more likely to draw in everybody.
Right. Yeah. Be aware of the topic. I think that can really make a difference. Also invite people's input, comments.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, new lady?
Right.
Come up with her name, obviously. Now, to add even more of an appeal to really addressing this issue, when they surveyed people, they asked them a number of demographic questions and faith questions. No surprise, about a quarter of those who took this survey of just a sampling of Americans have no religious affiliation. They were nuns, N-O-N-E-S, about 26%. But here's the interesting part. People who say that they do not participate in any faith community, 42%. So there's a significant percentage of people that identify as religious, but are not participating in a faith community.
And yet have critiques of what happens inside the church.
Well, and I would say also perhaps are not participating because of some of these negative experiences.
Okay.
Which to me would say there's opportunity for us if we can improve this. There's a significant number of people, millions of Americans, who are interested in feeling a sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And that if we can get this right, we can draw them into church community.
You mentioned know their name, and it brought to mind a story from our friend Kathleen that in Chicago, she was attending a church and was invited to be part of a small group, and she went a number of times, and every time they had to ask her again, what was your name again?
Yes.
And she finally just said, if they don't care enough to remember my name from week to week, they don't care about me. I'm not going back.
Oh, yeah. Sarah had a very similar experience at a big church in Chicago when we were looking for one. She volunteered in the nursery for weeks, and the volunteers there had no clue what her name was.
Oof.
And she's like, yeah, we're done here. They don't want it. Like, the feeling was they don't want us here.
Yeah.
which again is not true. If you would have asked them, we'd love to have you here.
Right.
We're glad you're here. We're welcoming to people.
But you can't build a relationship with someone if you don't even know their name.
And somebody just texted that there's got to be a line between not welcoming new people and the over-the-top welcome wagon because both are extremely off-putting. Yes.
Someone needs to do, like for church greeters, we love you guys. There needs to be introversion sensitivity training for you. It really can be overwhelming when you're walking into a new place and you get swarmed.
Yeah, and I don't need to be pounced on, but like look me in the eye. Hey, welcome. Glad you're here.
See, you're new. Here's some information over here. If you have questions, let us know. Bathrooms are over here. And then, let me settle in.
Not, hey, I'm Buddy the Elf. What's your favorite color? You don't want to do any of that. But I see, even though this is a negative of sorts, if we can continue to work on this and not allow divisions among ourselves, I think there's a lot of opportunity for church growth in a country where people are longing for community and belonging. Mm-hmm. And they're less put off by our beliefs than they are, and our judgment, than they are by our cliques. Big thing.